All right, and I think we're starting. Yay. Okay. Yes. So, hello everyone. Okay. Oh my goodness. This is Oh, here we go. Here's our countdown. Oh, we missed our countdown.
Oh, we missed the countdown. I knew
Okay,
something.
hold on. I
Been a
know.
long time.
I know. Okay. We can still do the countdown. Okay, let's do this.
Okay.
Yay.
Yay.
Does that bring back memories?
It does. It does.
Welcome everyone.
It's all coming back now.
I know, right? So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for Talk, Listen, Share. It is our educational arm of Shay's Warriors Life After Cancer. And tonight we are with Rosemary Flaherty. She is joining us again, back from retirement. And sort of. And she's going to be presenting a amazing webinar, presentation on breathing and the importance of breath in our health. So we want to get started with our general disclaimers here. So Talk, Listen, Share is a 501c3 nonprofit with an all-volunteer board of directors that was formed in the Coachella Valley to help our cancer community thrive after treatment is over. The mission of Shay's Warriors is to inspire, inform, and empower through the health, fitness, and the mind-body connection to heal survivors and their families through a national network of support. And tonight, again, we are joined here with Rosemary, who has a really, she's going to go through a book that is all about breathing and all about how breathing can be super helpful in our everyday life and also with our in improving our health, improving our stress, calming our mind, focusing us. And I can't wait because I totally need that right now. It's been a crazy day. So, Rosemary.
Okay.
Welcome back.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here, and I'm just excited to make this presentation because I do think breath is incredibly important for health. It's something that we just forget about so many times, the importance and the grounding and the very intense health effects that proper breathing and knowledge of breathing has. So it's 6 o'clock at night. Everybody's probably a little bit low from a tough day at work. So I want to start out by just generating some energy. And this is one of my favorite go-tos. And I'm just going, let's create a lot of energy by rubbing our hands together and getting that energy going. And we're going to close our eyes and we're going to spread this energy that's right between our palms over our brains to wake us up, and then over our lungs, because we will be doing some deep breathing later on. So let me go ahead and start from there. The title of this is Every Breath You Take, because I just want to try to raise the consciousness that every breath we take is something that's really pretty extraordinary metabolically and mentally and spiritually. And it's such a great thing. We don't even know that we're doing it most of the time. Dr. Andrew Weil, who is the founder of the Andrew Weil Center for Integrative Medicine at the University of Arizona. And he has brought so much of the integrative practices into medical education and to more of the mainstream medicine practices. So he's responsible for a great deal of the advances in using integrative medicine in traditional medicine. But he made the statement, if I had to limit my practice on healthier living to only one tip, it would be to breathe better. He also said that the single most effective relaxation technique that he knows is the conscious regulation of breathing. So those are 2 points that I think are really a great way to start this talk out, because it's going to get us thinking about our breathing as this goes on. This presentation was inspired by the writings of James Nestor. And a few months ago, I started reading and completed and then went back and reread his book called Breath, The New Science of a Lost Art. It is an interesting book in that it provides an overview of the role that breathing has in shaping our history and the important role that it has in our health and our well-being and in maintaining our health. It focuses on the art of slow, controlled exhalations. We tend to always think about breathing in, we're breathing in, we're breathing in, which is wonderful. But so many of the benefits of breathing are through the slow and controlled exhalations. So I found this a very interesting book, and it brought a number of concepts that I really wasn't aware of. And it reads like a novel almost, because he brings so much of religious practices and different characters that he terms pulmonauts, and an overview of good practices, bad practices, and the stunning effects that people can have in changing health, in changing mental well-being, using good, strong breathing practices. So I bet you wonder what a pulmonaut is, because I was like, what is that? So here are a couple of definitions. A pulmonaut is a non-physician explorer of their consciousness, utilizing the breath as the vehicle for personal development. That's one. And another definition is that a pulmonaut is someone who uses the science of nasal breathing to boost their immune system, increase lung capacity, circulation, and decrease in anxiety. All of that goes into the review of the wonder of breathing and to remind us of its importance. This book starts out with James Nestor kind of introducing himself as a man who's in a real crisis period in his life. He's not healthy. He's had pneumonia like a couple of years in a row. His job is a mess. He's full of anxiety, and his house is in need of extraordinary repairs. So he's just carrying around a lot of anxiety, and his pulmonologist recommended that he take a breathing class. He lived in Northern California in the San Francisco area. So he took a class actually in Haight-Ashbury, and he describes how he walks into this old apartment that is just kind of decrepit, paint's peeling off. There are a lot of people sitting on an old carpet in the middle of the living room. And the hostess is a woman who doesn't say much. She just walks over and turns on a tape of someone who's guiding breathing for an hour. And he talks about how for the first 20 minutes or so, he's kind of squeaming and not allowing his mind to turn off, and feeling like, why am I here? I wanted to leave, but he stayed. Then at the end of an hour, he got into the rhythm, he got into the breathing. And after an hour, he said that he woke up and he was covered in sweat, that he had sweat through his clothes, that he was dripping with sweat, that it had been such a profound experience that he warmed up so much that he was sweating. So He goes on to say that his biggest concern was kind of, how am I going to ride my bike home when I'm saturated in the middle of the night and then go home and sleep? So he went home, he got a great night's sleep, and he woke up feeling profoundly better. So he continued on with this class, and it was the moment that launched him into this exploration of breathing. So there are many interesting stories and characters presented in this book, but one of the Pulmonauts that I found fascinating and probably worthy of a movie is a gentleman named Carl Stroh. And he started as a choir teacher. He started teaching singers how to control their exhalation. And by doing this, he was building their respiratory muscles, enlarging their lungs, their lung capacity, and then teaching how to resonate more fully on the exhale. As a result of his training, the choir went on to start winning awards, and they were offered a weekly national broadcast on the radio at the time. So his reputation was spreading, and from there, he was called to New York to start retraining opera singers with the Metropolitan Opera. So with his training, their endurance and performances improved greatly, and his training techniques definitely paid off. He trained with the opera for a while. He trained the opera singers for a while. And then while living in New York in 1958, he was contacted by the East Orange Veterans Hospital, and that's in New Jersey. They invited him to work with a group of debilitated, stretcher-bound emphysema patients. So he walks into a room and sees a number of incapacitated patients that were on stretchers. Many of them could not walk. So he took on this challenge, and he worked on trying to improve these people's quality of life in some way. And he worked tirelessly in like 7 days a week with them. He evaluated the disease as a great problem with the exhalation. So with emphysema, air is trapped in the lungs, and the gases don't exchange very well. And people tend to get large barrel chests and require oxygen when they're in the end stages of this disease. The diaphragm is not working properly. So to assist with the breathing, he started by repositioning them. He walked in and he saw that the nurses had propped them up with a pillow that kind of thrust their chest forward even more. And they weren't moving around a lot. So whenever you don't move around, your muscles stiffen up. And remember, so much of our breathing capacity is controlled by muscles, our diaphragm, our intercostal muscles, so muscles that surround the chest. So he started by repositioning them on the floor, laying them flat. He rubbed and tapped all the rigid muscles in their backs, their necks, and in their chests. And he started breathing exercises of holding their breath and slowly releasing just small amounts of air. He worked with the group for many weeks, and then they got x-rays, and it validated that their lung capacity had expanded. The actual damage to the lung tissue of the disease was not relieved, but the capacity to breathe and to function and to move more freely was greatly increased with his interventions. So with this continued care, many of them were able to get off of the oxygen support. Many of them were able to start walking, and some of them actually were able to leave the hospital. His work at the VA he worked at the VA and had a successful private practice as well. His interventions were not without controversy, and many of the physicians on staff objected to his work because he wasn't providing any research and because he wasn't an MD. So it's not like he was readily accepted. There were some bumps in the road, so to say. They thought his concepts were just too out there and not valid. And we have to go back and remember that This was in 1958. So medicine tended to be pretty stodgy and very much dictated by traditional treatment. So after many years of success in this position, he went to yet another group of people that needed intervention with breathing to improve performance or quality of life. And so he was invited to assist with the Yale track team. So he left New York and went and worked with the track and field team. And he entered into this part with this particular group of highly trained athletes. And they were very successful athletes, thinking that it would probably be a little bit easier because surely they had good breathing practices. What he discovered is they did not have good breathing practices and respiratory practices, and they suffered weak respiratory systems, and they were very susceptible to colds, flu, and pulmonary infections, just like everyone else. The rapid respirations that were not deep and were rigid and held were causing actual trauma to their pulmonary systems and caused respiratory ailments like post-workout asthma. So when you think about the stresses of running, and when you think of the amount of oxygen demand and the amount of demand for your muscles and for your brain, it is something that if you hold your breath, if you're breathing in a very rigid way when you're performing, it's not going to help you cross that finish line feeling oxygenated or feeling relaxed or feeling the benefits of this fantastic endeavor that you just took by running the races. Lots of people were crossing the finish line feeling ill, experiencing lots of wheezing. Sometimes they would just collapse and kind of pass out once they crossed the finish line. So what he did is he taught them how incorporated breathing techniques. He wanted them to breathe more softly. He wanted them to breathe more in a more coordinated fashion with the running, with their movements. So he softened their breathing. He had them breathe deeply and calmly and exhale, hold, and then exhale very softly and try to get a longer exhalation. He taught them to synchronize this type of breathing with when the starter gun went off. So he, instead of warming up and then going and doing fast breathing and maybe holding your breath until the starter gun, he wanted people to breathe softly, to relax, and then when they heard the starter gun, to slowly release all their breaths so that when they were actually running, the first breath they took in action was a deeper breath, that it would be more nourishing to the body. So because of that, he increased the energy and the stamina, and they started breaking records, personal best records, and some of the track and field records. And they felt more relaxed, and they required less time in recovery after and between the races. So that benefited them not only for one race, but for the entire season of racing, so that they just came out with less downtime and were able to train better. So after breaking those records, after training the runners at Yale, he trained a group of runners in South Lake Tahoe for the Mexico City Summer Olympics in 1968. As a result of that, as a result of training them with this much more relaxed, expansive breathing, 5 world records were set and 12 Olympic medals were won as a result of his training. The American runners were also the only team that did not require oxygen before nor after the races, which was the standard practice of the time. His lessons breathing coordination, and the power to exhale fully. That kind of fit in with an ancient Chinese wisdom from 700 AD that states, when the breath is perfect, the form is perfect. We live in a society that can challenge the principles of good breathing. We hunch over our computers, we take little short, fast breaths, we feel stiff, we're prone to anxiety, worry, depression. Exercise, and we forget to exercise, and we forget about the importance of good lung health. We take our breathing for granted. So the time that we're best reminded of how important the respiratory system is usually when we get a bad cold or if we get a respiratory infection. And then you realize how it can be very difficult to breathe. The breathing techniques are good preventative measures and health balance the systems, provide healthy circulation to the organs, expand and strengthen the chest, the abdominal muscles, and maintain good health. One thing about reading this book, you breathe a lot. You breathe a lot of interesting different styles because you're very much inspired to go, let me try this breathing. And so you feel pretty great at the end of the book and at the end of the chapter, however you choose to break at the end of the day. All of this breathing that we've spoken about is breath through the nose. So the nose provides you with optimal breath. The nares are a wonder that provide air that is warmed, humidified, and it provides protection from bacteria, fungus, and viruses. It increases oxygen delivery to the tissues by opening up the pulmonary vessels and allowing increased blood flow. So when you take a breath in, there's many different mechanisms within your nose, within your nares that go down, and it creates a much better environment for air. So it warms it, keeps it moist, so that everything is nourished in a much better manner. And then by holding, and it activates good chemicals within the nose, one called nitric oxide. And then when you hold CO2, that also, our carbon dioxide, we breathe it in, oxygen converts into carbon dioxide through metabolic processes, and you breathe it out. But when you maintain that, when you hold it a little bit, release it more slowly, then that too creates an environment where oxygenation is better, relaxation, you're exercising your muscles of your respiratory system more efficiently. So there are many benefits from that. Mouth breathers don't have the same effect. Mouth breathing, when you wake up in the morning, if you've been breathing through your mouth and you have that excruciating dry mouth to start your day off with, you realize the advantages of nasal breathing. So when people are mouth breathers, and there are many conditions where people have to breathe through their mouths. Some people have anatomical issues where they're breathing through their mouth, but these are people that are more prone to infection. They are more prone to some different, they tend to have higher blood pressure. They might have a higher heart rate, and their respiratory system, they might not have a good capacity for normal breathing. That is one that's been, that allows for synchronicity within movements. So what we're stressing is slowing the breath down, holding the inhales, and just keep it in a little bit longer to activate the parasympathetic nervous system. So the parasympathetic nervous system is the one that relaxes us, that lowers our blood pressure, that lets us just move into more of a state of relaxation than the other side of the nervous system, which is the sympathetic nervous system, which is the one that's the fight or flight. Our heart rate goes up, our blood pressure goes up. We might be preparing for a fight. Fighters breathe little tiny short breaths because that's the way to activate the sympathetic nervous system. So they need to go out there and protect themselves. They need to fight. So they're stressing and breathing hard and go out there and then perform. The parasympathetic, what is activated with good breathing is one reason that we feel the benefits in our body and our mind when we're doing deep breaths. In times of stress, what's a good place to go? A good controlled breath. And the benefits of repeating it 3, 4, 5 times is it really helps you slow down. Your focus is different. You're removed from so much of the anxiety, the trauma. It's a great intervention for chronic pain. It is a great intervention for people that feel an asthma attack coming in. If they can control some breaths through their nose, sometimes it just really helps the progression of the asthma attack. And with so many of the respiratory illnesses or conditions, our first line is always medications, and I'm not saying that's wrong. Medications greatly intervene with asthma and with so many problems with lungs. I'm not saying that they can be bypassed, but certainly things can be enhanced with some breathing and being allowed to relax. We've had a lot of stress with COVID over those past years, a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, and a lot of these types of things. And to be able to do something that is as self-nurturing as slowing down, taking your breaths, slowly focusing on them, it's kind of like giving yourself a nice little hug. And the health benefits are also very, very important. So at this point, I think I would like to introduce some different breathing techniques, and we can do some practices. So the other thing about this book, he gives many wonderful resources for online sites that have things like timers on them, so that you're sure that you're breathing in to the count of this and out to the count of that and holding it for this amount of seconds. So that's really kind of an added treat to this book. So we'll start out with what's called yogic breathing. And this is one that is really nice for stimulating relaxation. So if you sit in a chair, cross-legged or upright on a floor, whatever is comfortable for you, and just relax your shoulders. Try to relax your shoulders and feel more relaxed just in this sitting position that is the best one that you have chose. Now, place one hand on your navel, right around your belly button. Slowly breathe into the belly. You'll feel it expand with each breath in and then deflate with each breath out. So we want to do this belly breathing with our hand, feeling how our stomach is moving. Let's do 3 of them. Now we're going to move our hand up a little bit, and it's going to be more at the bottom of our rib cage. So we want to focus on our breath so that this area is getting filled with air and that it's going to be expanding. The purpose of putting your hand here is that you're going to be able to feel your ribs with each inhalation, and then you'll feel that they expand with inhalation, and then they're going to be contracting. So let's go ahead and practice this 3 times. Okay, now we're going to move our hand up to right below our collarbone, our chest, and we're going to breathe deeply into this area. So we want our chest to be kind of spreading out. And then with each exhale, we'll feel it come back to its resting position. So when people say belly breaths, you felt that. And when they say don't breathe only with the top part of your chest, you felt that. So all of these 3 motions, we want to connect them into one breath. We want to inhale down to the stomach, to the lower rib cage, and then the chest. And then we're going to exhale in the opposite position. So we're going to start first by emptying the chest, then the rib cage, and then the stomach. And you're free to put 2 hands on your chest and on your abdomen to just feel that, because sometimes it's helpful as a guide when you can feel the actual breaths in and out. So why don't we do this about 3 times? So we want to connect that motion of going down to the stomach, filling the lower rib cage, and then filling the upper chest, and then breathing all of that air out. Here we go. So this might feel a little odd, but it is kind of the nice steps through when people say, do that deep belly breathing. You can feel it. You can also see how many muscles are engaged with a breath and with an exhalation. And all of that is really good. It's strengthening because your abdominals are engaged, your diaphragm's engaged, all the muscles that surround your ribs are engaged. And that's what we want to strengthen, expand, relax, because by building that capacity, it will really assist you in stressful situations, in athletic endeavors when you're working out, and when you're sitting in front of a computer feeling like, oh, everything is so stiff right now. Think about, I'm going to sit back, use good posture, start breathing, feel I'm going to be engaging this top part of my body. Another thing that I think is an important note when you're talking about good respiratory strength is think about your posture constantly. We We are so prone to lean forward, to jut necks out. When you go out and you're in a crowd the next time, take a good look around you. Notice people's posture and make it a goal that they're going to look at you and say, that person has really good posture. They're standing up straight, because it aligns your spine, it aligns your muscles. And by having good posture, it's so much more easy to breathe. I know that when I was in critical care and I had a ventilated patient, there were many things that stressed them. Changes in conditions, suctioning. There were so many different maneuvers that we did in the critical care unit, or coming out of anesthesia, not knowing what to think about a tube down your throat on the ventilator. When there were those situations, I used to put my hand on their chest, right below the collarbone, just very, very lightly talk to them and say, feel my hand. Try to breathe with my hand. And it was usually pretty amazing how that was a calming presence for people that were having a really tough time with breathing through a tube. So I think it's connecting, grounding, relaxing, and really important to be able to pull focus and feel yourself breathing. Okay, we'll move on to another form of breathing, which is probably the one that most people are familiar with. It's box breathing. So this is just, it's nice to imagine a box, a nice even box. And when I'm doing this, I always imagine the box to be a bright color, something that I can visualize when I close my eyes as a beautiful color, or just a white light. But inhale to the count of 4. That's one line. Hold for the count of 4. That's the other side of your box. Exhale to the count of 4. That's another line in your box. Hold for the count of 4. And then repeat. So why don't we do a couple of nice deep box breaths? So everybody can just count to 4. Remember, it's 4. 4 in, hold for 4, exhale for 4, and then hold for 4, then repeat. Here we go. I hope everybody got their breaths in. There's another kind of box breathing that has a longer exhalation period. And that is, we're going to inhale for the count of 4, hold for the count of 4, exhale for the count of 6, and then hold for 2. Okay, so we're making an irregular box. So inhale for 4, hold for 4, breathe out more slowly to the count of 6, and then hold for 2. So why don't we try that twice? That is a breath that's really nice to do before you sleep, or maybe even do it in bed when you're lying down. But it's a nice exercise because it really has a great capacity to relax, to to help relieve anxiety, to intervene. To sometimes it's nice to prepare for a stressful situation, going to the doctor, going to your mammogram, going for follow-up appointments. These breath techniques can be used to help you. Maybe it's right in the car before you walk in the door. Maybe it's in the waiting room. Maybe it's in the morning when you're getting ready. But these can have a very positive effect in preparing for stressful situations. So those are three simple ones that I think you're probably most familiar with. There are many, many more, and there are many, many that are complicated that are mentioned in this book, that probably if you were going to start using them, it would be a good idea to talk it over with your doctor if you have any pre-existing health conditions. I think that it's there are some websites that are really nice if you want to familiarize yourself more with James Nestor's techniques in writing. He has a website, mrjamesnestor.com, and he has a number of options, and one of them is breath, and he has a number of videos of different techniques that you can try. Some of them are odd. Some of them are, hold your breath for a much longer time than we would really think would be beneficial. But if you're building capacity and if you're training for things, those are probably more appropriate. And there are certain situations that they would be appropriate. But it's just interesting to see, because he's also written a book on the deep divers. These are people that dive in deep water and stay down there for 10, 12 minutes before they come up. I don't know if anybody had the opportunity to see My Octopus Teacher. It was a wonderful, wonderful story. It drove me crazy because I was in such a state of disbelief that people could truly do that amount of swimming and interacting at a low in water for that amount of time. So it was just an amazing presentation in so many ways. But just to experience what it's like with a deep diver was really enchanting to me. Another good website is Dr. Andrew Weil's website, and all you have to do is just Google Dr. Weil, and he does a 4-7-8 breath technique, and he has a number of videos that you can observe, and he talks about the techniques, how he incorporates them, and what they're good for. So with that, I think that's a lot of material. We got to experience some breathing, and hopefully this will encourage you to maybe explore a little bit and be more conscious about breathing. As you get older, things tend to shrink or get stiff, or not move in the direction that they did when we're young. So I particularly feel that these are beneficial because I really think that keeping our chest moving freely, having a good strong diaphragm, having good strong abdominals that can expand and contract to assist with breathing is something that's just really, really important. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you learned something, and maybe you'll pick up the book and find out for yourself what an interesting read is. There's been mixed reviews of it. I'm not saying it's an end-all, be-all. Sometimes it was a little bit weak in the science department, but it was overall something that, if you read a book and you end up breathing in ways you usually don't do, I think that's probably a pretty good thing.
Thank you, Rosemary. I've heard of the box breathing, of course, yoga breathing. And I was just thinking that all of these great techniques, just do the one that works for you. right? And that's the bottom line, right? So make sure you do the ones that work and that you are most comfortable with, that get you the best results. And it's almost like you have like biofeedback in your pocket. Like that's what this is, right? Especially with the yogic breathing, you're touching your belly, making sure it's expanding, your rib cage, making sure it's expanding. You know, it's a very tactile situation where you're like, oh yeah, right. So I'm not actually breathing out of my belly. I'm just staying up in my chest, or then you can adjust,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So we do have a few questions, comments. Uh, Angela asked, she said that the box breathing, or she sees that you're doing box breathing closed mouth. Can you, or should you do these open mouth?
Um, the inhalations need to be with through your nose, through your nose. Dr. Weil actually does an exhalation through his mouth. So his style of breathing was to exhale through the mouth, to inhale deeply, hold, and then exhale slowly through, very slowly through the mouth.
Okay.
So the exhalations can be through the nose or through the mouth. But the point is, they need to be slower. They need to be held, and we need to slow down, and that accomplishes the same purpose. But the um, all of the examples in the majority of the styles that were cited in the book advocated highly for breathing in through the nose and exhaling through the nose.
It's is there any studies showing the difference?
Um, the benefits being that when you exhale through the nose, then you actually help clear sinuses, and that it's beneficial for the sinuses. So that was really more of the rationale behind it, and that particularly if you're active or an athlete, if you're encouraged to keep your mouth closed more, it's more effective for your breathing and the humidification, and you're not getting as dried out, so to speak, when you're doing it. So that's one reason they advocated much more for the nasal breathing than the mouth breathing. But like I said, there are so many that do advocate exhaling through your mouth.
Right. So it sounds like, and Angela pointed out too, she was like, good point, slow inhales and exhales, like through the mouth, would be better. I'm just thinking that if you're inhaling through your nose, that is smaller apertures.
Mhm.
So it is slowing it down, like physiologically,
Yeah.
right? And then versus like the big like breath in through your mouth and then out through your mouth.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. It just, I think that so many of the descriptions of the nasal breathing is that it's just a much softer process than when we're going through our mouth. And if the goals are relaxation and health and all of those things, then the nose just seems to be a kinder, gentler route.
So one of the questions that I had at the beginning is like, what is a definition of a soft breath?
A soft breath is there. It's the amount that you inhale. It's the timing of the inhalation and the capacity to hold it. So it's slowing it down, and it's making you more aware of the actual process of breathing for this point in time. Because, and the other thing is, there's like the example with the gentleman who trained the athletes, there's um, I know that runners describe getting the rhythm. It's like when the endorphins kick in, you get the rhythm. But so much of it is that there is a rhythm between the activity and the respirations that drives things. And that's in any sport when you're going. But the softer breaths are just easy. The slower, softer, more gentler breaths are much easier on our pulmonary systems as well. If we're doing that, then it's just not expanding as much. It's rushing air in and out of gentle little structures than if it's a slower, gentler breath. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Versus like the big harsh, like a bigger, harsher breath. Is that what it is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Got it. So let's see. Let's see. I think I hit all the questions so far. Um, what was the technique that that Dr. Weil was using that you mentioned?
Okay, Dr. Weil's breath is he has you count in, or count in. He has you breathe in to the count of 4. Breathe into the count of 4. Hold it for 7. And then breathe out so that you make some resonance to the count of 8 through your mouth.
Huh.
So
breathe for 4, hold for 7,
hold for 7,
and then make noise for 8.
And so that's what he recommends. And he recommends that's the breathing technique that he recommends for like his residents and for his patients. And he recommends it twice a day. And he cautions against overusing it. So don't overuse it. Don't do like 15, 20 of these in a row. Because when people are training and they're holding their breath longer and longer, particularly if somebody's training for something. When they're doing that, it can make you dizzy. It can make you feel weird. So some of these breathing techniques, if you start feeling woozy or if it's just not agreeing with you, then it's time to stop and maybe reconsider. I think the box breath is gentle, slow, easy. It has all the good benefits of helping your circulation and helping you calm your mind as well. So it's your breath is the ultimate like mind-body connection. It's the driver of that everything that's kind of connected between your brain and your toes.
And I believe Shay was also saying that breath in through the nose and no with the mouth closed also helps warm the body.
Yes.
And breathing out through an open mouth cools the body. And I think in that yogic breathing sense.
Absolutely. Because our noses are amazing humidifiers and heaters. Mm-hmm. And they cite some different some different people that live high up in cold climates in like Tibet, and that they warm themselves really effectively through kind of breathing rituals and routines. The other thing is it can relax us yet wake us up and make us more mentally acute. Breathing is one of the techniques that Buddhist monks have used for centuries to increase the quality of the meditation, but also the length of their meditation, because there are some very lengthy practices for meditation, and it helps them maintain that and stay awake and be beneficial and when they're in their meditative state.
If somebody were to have like a morning wake up breath, what would you suggest? Just to energize them.
Just to energize. I think that I might do the yogic breathing, because that's kind of what I do in the morning. I want to start engaging muscles that have been asleep all night. So when I do stretches, I tend to do more of a yogic style rhythmic breathing, because it kind of gives you energy and just wakes everything up. I also feel with breathing, when you breathe properly and expand it, it relaxes my back, the tension in back. I've noticed that it just can help relax muscles way back there towards the spine that connect around the ribs and around the chest. And it can be really helpful for bad days with back pain or stiffness, whatever.
Yep. Get that oxygen flowing through your system, right?
Get that going. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. We're going to wrap up tonight. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. This will be on our Facebook, Shays Warriors Facebook, as well as our YouTube channel. And if you want to watch this later on or share it with some friends or family that you think this will be very beneficial for, I think breathing over it, like breathing is life, right? Breath is life. You have to breathe to live. And why not make the most of it and be the most efficient at energizing your body and healing your body as well. So we typically, this is one of our first actual lives in a while. So we're maybe a little rusty. What we have changed up this year for Talk Listen Share is that we have one live programming a month. And the other programming is going to be a repeat of all of our great, rebroadcasts of all of our great programs that we've had for the past couple of years. So you can always find them already on our Facebook and YouTube page. But right now this is how we are doing our education piece. So there is, if you, again, here's the ticker. If you want to find out more about Shays Warriors or donate or help to support what we do for survivorship, you can go to shayswarriors.org. We are having our inaugural I Am Hope retreat for 30 women, this time breast cancer survivors this year. And that is coming up next month. It is going to be amazing. We are going to have a lot of great information and just it's going to be such a wonderful time just to love on these women and support them and give something back to help with their continued walk in survivorship. So we will be back in a couple of weeks. So the second week of June will be a rebroadcast, and then we will be back live for July. So thank you again so much, Rosemary, for coming back on Talk, Listen, Share, and have a good night, everyone.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I enjoyed it.
So very welcome, and we'll see you later. Have a good night.
Bye-bye. Great seeing you, Sonia.
Oh, thank you.